Thank you. It is so fun to be here today on this Valentine's weekend. Actually, next month, a church in Indonesia, of all places, invited me to come out and do a marriage conference. And then so on a Saturday, and then on Sunday, speak. And so I was like, oh, it would actually be perfect if I could do a trial run at Shadow Rock before going out there. So that's what you guys get to be, as my guinea pigs. So first service, I realized I had about 3 hours worth of material in 25 minutes, and so I just threw out a ton of stuff. So hopefully, this time I didn't even bring my notes up. I'm just going to wing it. So hopefully you get the gist of it. Thank you. So I am a marriage and family therapist, and I have been one for about 25 years. I work primarily with couples in crisis, and really my specialty is marriage intensives. And so that would be couples that have struggled, couples from all over the country. They would come to me and spend 8 hours a day of therapy. So it's very intensive. Usually it's a 2-day intensive with one couple or 4-day with a group. So that was my experience for many years in Missouri. When I came here, I went into private practice. So I feel like I have heard almost everything in the therapy office. Once in a while, I'll hear something that really stands out I'm like, I've never heard that before, not quite that way. Just a few months ago, I heard what I hear all the time. The wife says to the husband, I just feel like you don't love me anymore. I'm just not feeling the love from you anymore. I hear that a lot. Typically, what I hear back is, I do love you. Here's all the reasons why. Here's all the ways I try and show you, or I just made a mistake, or whatever it is. This husband shrugged and went, what's love got to do with it? I thought, I'm going to spend so many hours doing therapy with this guy. He's got a lot of work to do. But the wife was like, are you kidding me? What does love have to do with it? It's everything. Love is everything. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, yeah, I can be judgmental about this guy, how calloused he is. But how many of us are going through life, just going through the motions, doing the things that love is supposed to look like, but the heart isn't behind it anymore? It may be in our marriage, it may be with our friendships or our kids, it may even be in our relationship with God. We're just going through the motions. We're reading the Bible, checking the box. I'm doing my daily Bible reading. I need to get through it in a year, so I'm going to do it really fast, and I don't even know what it said, but check the box. And then I go to church, I've got my hands raised during worship, the music sounds good, and I'm thinking about my grocery list and everything that I've got to do when I get home. The love isn't behind it anymore. We're just going through the motions. And so I really want to talk about that for a moment. Some of you know my husband. He passed away a year and a half ago. His name was Craig, and he was one of the greatest men on the entire planet. And for those of you who know him, you know he was incredible. He was an incredible father, incredible husband. But sometimes people make the mistake of thinking that because I rave about him all the time and everybody who knew him know like what a great man he was, you kind of think, well, I'm sure your marriage was perfect and you never had any fights, never any problems. Somebody recently said to me, did you guys ever fight? Did you ever have arguments? Were there ever hardships? And I was like, of course. And she said, can you please tell me all of them? Because it would be really helpful to know that. So she's like, because I start thinking, well, we don't look like that, and so I must have married the wrong person. No, that's not it. It's just, where am I focused? I'm focused on the good things. He was focused on the good things. Did we have plenty of bad things? Of course. So I want to talk about that, and I'm going to tell you a story in just a second about a weekend hardship. But before that, I want to read this one verse that is, or it's not a verse, it's a quote. Of all the powers, I love this, I just read it the other day. Of all the powers, love is the most powerful and the most powerless. It is the most powerful because it alone can conquer that final and most impregnable stronghold, which is the human heart. It is the most powerless because it can do nothing except by consent. So good. What it means is even the hardest hearts can be penetrated with love. So it's so powerful. But it's powerless because as much as you love someone with all your heart and you can do all the things, you just think about them all day long, you can't make someone love you. And God created mankind with the most perfect love. He created us. He sent his son to die for us. He has the perfect love for us. But he gave all of us the gift of free will, because without that, we're just robots. It would be like a husband locking his wife in the house and saying, I actually know a husband who almost locked his wife in the house. He wouldn't let her go to coffee with her mother. He didn't let her go to baby showers because he was afraid a man might walk by and her attention would get turned towards this other man. So he tried to control her and make her love him. What he didn't realize is, as hard as he was trying, it was backfiring. She actually ended up finding something called the internet. Found some guys out there that gave her attention. It was a terrible ending. But you can't make someone love you. You can't as much as you try. So I do want to share, because everybody wants to know, tell me another hardship that you had. This, a lot of times, and I would say our marriage is probably very similar to many marriages in here, in that most of the arguments you have, most of the things that happen, it's not that the other person intended to hurt you, intended to say something that affected you or offended you or whatever it is. It just happened. Things happen, right? But you can get all bent out of shape over things. So this one weekend is similar to this. Before I tell you about the weekend, for those of you who don't know my husband or didn't know him, I'm going to show you a video. This was like 5 years ago, and it's just a minute, but it gives you just a little picture of who he is and who I am a little bit. So
I'm joined now by my wonderful wife, Trisha. We just this last weekend celebrated our 29th year of marriage. It's been a great 29 years.
It has. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
What's the best part of being married to me for 29 years?
That's a great question. The best part of being married to you is being married to you.
Good.
Should we start over? Yeah. So, if you're looking at that with all the judgment, like you couldn't come up with anything better than that. What threw me off was the wording of the best part of being married. If you'd said, name 100 things you love about me, that would have been easy. But I was like, the best part, Anyway, so he was so great. So this one weekend, 3 years ago this weekend, Valentine's weekend, this wonderful lady from our church named Tracy Meyer, she had 2 places up in Idlewild. One she stayed at a lot, and then her cabin. And she said, hey, it's Valentine's weekend coming up. Do you guys want to stay at my cabin this weekend? You can have the place to yourselves. And I was like, well, that would be nice. My husband is actually, I know I've talked to a lot of people over the last few days. What are you guys doing for Valentine's Day? A lot of husbands and wives, they don't put that much care into Valentine's Day, which is fine. If your relationship is strong, Valentine's Day isn't a big deal to you. That's fine. For my husband, it was a big deal. He loved doing everything big, and special occasions were a huge deal, and it had to be on the day. It couldn't be the day before, the day after. That's just how he was. So this weekend, I was like, hey, Valentine's Day, Tracy Meyer offered her cabin up in Idlewild. Do you want to go? He was like, absolutely. So then he said, we'll get food from Morton's Steakhouse, and we'll pick it up on the way up. And he had the whole magical plan of how the weekend was going to go. So I packed my suitcase. He packs his suitcase. We swing by Morton's Steakhouse. We're driving up the mountain. As we're driving up the mountain, it starts snowing. And it's snowing. Now, it's like 75 degrees here, hour and a half, the road. It's snowing like crazy, and the road turns icy. And the cabin is on this hill that's like really steep. So we're going up, and all of a sudden the car starts slipping back. We can't get up the hill. I don't know quite how far away the cabin is from where we are, but he had said something like 100 feet, so I knew it was close, whatever that was. I'm not really paying much attention, but the car's not going. So I say, why don't we just pull over? We'll park the car. We'll ask these people in this house if we can just park our car in the driveway, and then we'll just walk up with our stuff to wherever the cabin is. So he says, okay. So he stops. I get out of the car, I go to this random house, ring the doorbell, dogs are barking, nobody comes to the door. I'm waiting, 3 minutes, nobody comes to the door. So I turn around and I go back, and he's gone. I don't know if his car slid down or if he just went up to the cabin and he's waiting for me. I have no idea, but I'm like, the cabin's got to be close. He had said something about 100 feet, I'm going to start walking. So now, because it was 75 degrees down here, I'm wearing flip-flops, yes, black pants, a sleeveless shirt with a little cardigan over it, right? So I start walking, and it's snowing like crazy. The snow is up to my shins. Because I've got flip-flops and one breaks, now I'm barefoot, take the other one off, walking in the snow. So as I'm walking and walking and walking, I have no idea where the cabin is. I end up like several blocks away, and my feet feel like they're gonna just fall off. Like I'm sure they're turning black, ready to fall off. So I'm like, I've just got to stop because my feet are going to fall off. So I stop, I find this little ledge, I'm standing on a hill, I take off the cardigan, wrap it around my feet, I'm standing still now, I can't move, and then I have this brilliant solution. I'm going to put my arms in my sleeves so I look like I've got no arms, and I'm just standing there yelling for literally 30 minutes. Help! Is anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? Forever. So my voice is hoarse, I'm waiting. After 30 minutes, I hear Tracy, who had come to the cabin to meet us and check us in. I hear her way off in the distance, Trisha Cunningham. I'm like, Tracy, I'm here. I'm so happy to hear her. So then as she's walking towards me, I'm like, I don't have shoes, so I can't come towards you. She's like, I'll go back to the cabin and get boots. So right then I hear a man's voice behind me, and this guy, random stranger, says, ma'am? And I turn around. He goes, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I can't move because I don't have shoes. And he goes, well, you shouldn't be out here barefoot. I'm like, yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. I did not intend to be like... So he says, I'll hop in my car, I'll give you a ride down to the cabin. So he takes me down to the cabin. I'm so thankful to get there. Well, Craig at this point, because that last 30 minutes thinks I'm kidnapped, he's scared to death. For him, somehow, when he's scared, it doesn't look like this loving protection. It's just like frustration and anger is what it looks like to me. He's like, where were you? I've been so scared. I'm like, what? I've been like ready to die out there. I thought I was going to sleep in a shed all night long. I didn't know. So anyway, we're like going through all this frustration. I'm like, why are you mad at me? You're the one who left. He's like, you're supposed to stay. Well, apparently the car did slide all the way and he couldn't get back up. So that's what happened. Anyway, so I'm starving. He's getting the suitcases in and doing all the stuff, and I see Morton's Steakhouse. I'm so happy because I'm starving at this point. I open the little container, and I'm sitting Indian style. I pick up the steak, and I'm just like chowing down because I'm hungry. And he walks in, and he looks at me, and he just is like head down. He's like, really? He's like, this weekend is not at all how I imagined it was going to be. And he was so sad. And here's the thing, and I was sad too, a little bit, but I was like really thankful to be alive more than anything. But the point is, so often that's a picture of what happens. Like, I'm very aware of what's going on within me. He's very aware of what's going on within him. But in relationship, like we've got our own buttons going off when our spouse says or does something that affects us. But the Bible talks about not taking a microscope and focusing on the other person's issues and all their problems and pointing out all the things they're doing wrong, but really just holding up a mirror and looking at, okay, my button got pushed, that affected me. What do I need to do within myself in order to get to a place where I can walk in forgiveness and grace towards the other person? Because in general, big picture, they're a really good person. They didn't intend to hurt you or harm you. Most of the time, there's a few exceptions, but most of the time, that's the case. So if you're walking in grace and forgiveness, it's so helpful in your marriage relationship. I can't tell you how many times someone will come into therapy with this, like basically a scroll of offenses that their spouse did from the past 25 years, all the things. And they're holding these grudges. And in their minds, they think, because I'm the one whose button got pushed all the time, I'm the perfect one. They're the one with all the problems. And most of the time, it's the biggest surprise in therapy when they realize, oh, I'm actually the one that needs to do some work here. I need to work through forgiveness and grace and understanding and communication, because I just thought if my button gets pushed, I'm right and they're wrong. So it's a real good tip for you guys. If you go to therapy, you're probably going to be disappointed because you're probably going to be the bad one. So the Bible talks about taking the speck out of your own eye. Matthew 7:3-5 says, and why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think about saying to your friend, let me get that speck out of your eye, and you can't see past the log in your own eye? And it goes on to say, you're actually being a hypocrite. So So really the focus is as we hold up the mirror, we're looking at what do I need to do here in order to be able to walk in grace and forgiveness regularly. There's a chapter in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13, that's called the love chapter. I highly encourage you, if your question is I don't even know how to love well, what are the things that I'm doing wrong? First of all, if you really don't know and you really think you're perfect and you're married, ask your spouse. Now, they may be scared of you, and they may not be willing to tell you truly like what they see as your issues, but if you really want to know, ask them. They'll probably be able to give you some input on that. But here's what love is. Love is patient, it's kind, it's not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It's not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs, which talks about forgiveness. It does not rejoice about injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up. It never loses faith. It's always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. So in marriage relationships, we have 3 stages. Chemistry, which is the really fun stage where there's all kinds of dopamine, oxytocin, norepinephrine, all the brain chemicals going on in the brain. It's so fun. That's the chemistry stage. And we put way too much value in the United States on that stage. If you watch romance movies and read romance novels, you think that that's love. That is the way it's going to be 24/7 for the rest of my life. It's just the initial stage. At the most, that stage lasts 2 years. Usually 4 months to 2 years, somewhere in that range. It fizzles out. But it's so fun. Now, here's an interesting statistic. In the United States, the divorce rate is like 40 to 50%. And here we choose people on our own who we think we should marry. In India, where 90% of marriages are arranged marriages, the divorce rate is 1%. Isn't that so interesting? So what does that tell you? Not that we should all have arranged marriages. I know that's the natural conclusion. No, because the chemistry stage is wonderful, and I love that stage. I think it's so fun. I love seeing young love all around me. We call it love, but it's actually young infatuation. But what it tells me is that stage 2 and 3, past the chemistry stage in India, is what they really value. And that's the stage of before commitment, mutual commitment, is the compatibility stage. And that's where the shared values are tested. You see, do we have similar values? Are we compatible in our personality? That's the dating stage that we typically have. There, they do that after marriage. There was one couple that I had in all my years that actually came from India, and they were from an arranged marriage. And I asked him, does like the romance ever kick in and that love ever kick in, that initial stage? And he said, oh, yes. I said, well, when did you guys meet for the first time? He said, on our wedding day. I'm like, you met for the first time on your wedding day. So when did that kick in? He goes, oh, about 3 months. So it's just, they do it different there. But the focus is on the compatibility or the commitment really more than anything there. And they just work at being compatible. And so we can do that too here if we focus on the commitment more than anything else. And then also if we're choosing well, you can work at your relationship and it's going to go well. So I have so much to say. This is what happened in the first service. I'm going to run out of time. So love your spouse to the best of your ability. Walk in grace and forgiveness. Now, the Bible talks, there's so many verses on love. Also talks about loving your children. But one thing that's interesting about loving your children, it actually says, if you sinful people know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more does your Heavenly Father give good gifts to those who ask Him? So what's interesting about that is it's like even the world knows how to love people who love them. The world knows how to love your children and grandchildren. It's so easy. I'm going to show you. Last week I was with my granddaughter, Selah. So she's my only grandchild, right? So I want to show you last weekend just this one little clip of what she says to me.
She just woke up.
What? What? You're going to be a big sister? Oh my goodness, you are. So look at my dress.
Look at my dress.
It says big sister. Selah, I'm so
I've been hiding it from you for a really long time.
Yes, very exciting. So they are due August 10th, and it's going to be a boy. His name will be Cyrus Craig. Craig is going to be his middle name, so we're so excited about that. But you look at, how can you not love that child, right? If anybody had her as your grandchild, you would love her too. And my children, I feel the same, and now their spouses. It's just easy to love those in your immediate family, easier, I should say, than loving the world. But God tells us what's different about Christianity from all the other religions or just people in the world is he's calling us to a love that isn't so easy, a love that's hard. He actually talks about what's different about Christianity is we're supposed to love our enemies. Luke 6:32 through 36, if you only love those who love you, why should you get credit for that? Even sinners love those who love them. Love your enemies. Does it continue? Yeah. I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commands, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you these things that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your love will overflow. This is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friend. So he's calling us to this sacrificial love where we're laying down. It's not about us getting our needs met, walking through life, taking from the world. So here's a picture that just kind of came to mind this week. Have you ever been to Sprouts or Winco where they have these like granola bins of, sometimes there's nuts and seeds and different things, and you push the lever and seeds come out into your little bag. So I've been doing that lately with granola. They have really good granola. So I like that. But imagine that one of these bins is called love seeds. And it goes straight up to heaven, and God just fills that bin with love seeds. And you get to go every single day and fill your bag as you spend time with him. You're praying, you're reading the Bible. His love is coming inside of you. Those love seeds are just filling your bag. And then he says, don't just keep it to yourself. Go share it with other people. Walk out of Sprouts and find other people to give it to. Spread the love. That's it. And he says, you're not even responsible. There's in 3 Gospels, there's the parable about the sower that is just scattering seeds. So as you're spreading the good news and you're sharing the gospel, you're not responsible for making it grow. The ground sometimes is fertile, sometimes it's rocky. You're just responsible for scattering the love seeds. But don't just love people or do good to people without also looking for an opportunity to tie it to the name of Jesus. Because a lot of religions are all about doing good. They're good people. There's tons of good people around. They're doing good things. It's coupling the good news with good deeds that makes the difference. My friend Tracy, 2 weeks ago, I was on a cruise from Miami to the Caribbean. It was supposed to be 3 girls going, and one got sick on the way there. So it ended up being just Tracy and I. We were in this cruise. Was hilarious. It was $450 per person. Very inexpensive, but pretty great. We went from Miami to the Cayman Islands and to Cozumel, Mexico. Had a great time. It felt like we were back in college. She was my college friend. That's just what our room looked like in college and on the cruise. So, and she had a much bigger suitcase than me. She came with her big, huge suitcase. So that's Tracy. Tracy's this godly, single mom, really sweet person. Love her so much. Well, she, the last night on the cruise, the boat apparently was just rocking like crazy, and she thought we were going to go under. So she's watched Titanic, I'm sure, more than once. But when she woke up in the morning, she goes, Trisha, were you scared all night last night? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. She's like, the boat, it was rocking like crazy. And I was like, it must have lulled me to sleep. I don't know anything. She's like, oh my word, I was praying all night long. And I was praying and pleading with God and saying, just please help us to not go under. And she was very scared. And she said, and I told the Lord, if you help us be alive in the morning, I promise you I will find someone to share the love of Jesus with. So she's like, so we've got to find someone today to share the love of Jesus with. I'm like, okay. Now, up until that point, we really had not talked to anybody aside from each other. But I really had, honestly, 5 minutes later forgot about that comment. Well, at the end of that day, we're walking through the promenade on the cruise ship, and the comedian, we had gone to 2 of the comedy shows, and he was hilarious, pretty clean, and he was a very negative, sarcastic guy. He talked about hating cats and hating kids, and but it was very funny. So she had said at one point, he'd be a hard person to be married to because he's got such a negative bent on everything. So anyway, she sees him sitting by himself as we're walking through the promenade, and she goes, oh, I want to go talk to him. So she goes over and she's like, your comedy routines were so funny, and it was so funny. And she's like, do you really hate cats? Because I have cats. He's like, I actually have cats of my own. What? And do you hate kids? No, I actually like kids. That's all part of my comedy routine. She's like, oh, that's so surprising. She's like, well, what I appreciated is it was pretty clean, because I'm a minister, licensed minister. And he just locks in. He's like, really? Huh. So all of a sudden, as I'm watching this between them, I'm confused. First of all, I'm like, I don't think she's putting it out there, trying to, it's not a pickup line, I'm a licensed minister, but then I also thought maybe he's looking for good material for his comedy routine. All I know is he was locked in. And then he's like, well, so what church? So she talks about that a little bit, and then he goes, I actually grew up with a religion, where I'm from in Boston, there's movies about it. And he's like, there's a whole scandal that actually was very hurtful to me and my family. One of my cousins was a victim of that whole thing. And she's like, oh, and he starts talking very openly about this. And so he's like, so it's really left an imprint on me. And she was like, well, I want you to know something. She's like, that's terrible, but please don't put that on Jesus, because the love of Jesus is amazing, and he has nothing to do with any of that. And I was like, wow, good job, Tracy. Number one, you found someone to share the love of Jesus with, like you promised you would do this morning. So that was great. And then I also thought, I don't know if this is making a difference. I don't really know what's happening here. We'll never know. Maybe it made a difference. Maybe it didn't. But here's what was crazy. When we got home from our trip, she sent me this that happened that same day. There was a 7.6 earthquake right where we were under our ship, right there, and tsunami warnings that got avoided. The news ended up saying, yeah, there are all these tsunami warnings, and then it just went away. So I'm like, maybe it's because Tracy prayed and made these promises and followed through with her commitment. So I'm just really thankful I'm here today instead of at the bottom of the ocean in the Cayman Islands. So thank you, Tracy, if you're watching today. So God's love is amazing. I do want to show you this clip. John 3:16 is the crux of the gospel, and it's for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. He sent his son to die for us so that we can be in relationship with him. We're not in Christianity to check a box. If we're just checking a box, it's the same as any other religion out there. We're in a relationship with Jesus, the Son of God who died for us. He came to this life, to this world, sacrificed his life for us, and he's got an open invitation, and he's just waiting for us to choose him back. We've got free will, and we can go the rest of our lives just saying, I don't really want to. Don't get to go to heaven. He's got the greatest eternity waiting for us, but he's letting us choose. It's as simple as saying, Jesus, I accept you into my life. I receive you. I want to be in relationship with you. And does it work if on your deathbed you ask Jesus into your heart? Yes, just like the criminal on the cross, last minute. But you don't know when you're going to die. Why not do it now and get the benefits of your entire life going so much better because you've got a relationship with Jesus? He's not a concept. He's a person, a real person who loves you and wants to be in relationship with you. So I want to end with this video of this guy that talks about how Jesus changed him.
And I was just like, God, if you're real, take away my anxiety and depression. Because deep down, I really don't want to do this right now. I don't. It was on Christmas, December 25th, 2020. I'll never forget the date. It was just buildup of anxiety and depression over the years. And I had thoughts of taking my own life. But I felt like Christmas that day, interactions with friends and family that day just weren't the best. And I struggled with feeling loved. And I was like, this is the most unloved I felt on a day where you give gifts and it's like the season of giving. And I'm like, this isn't cool. And it's like, you have the thoughts of like, oh, maybe I'm going to do it, like contemplation. But I was like, this is the day where I'm going to do it. Like, I'm fed up and I'm just tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of feeling unloved. Maybe it's better if I'm not here. Maybe the anxiety and depression will go away. Like, I don't know. After we got done doing Christmas with our families or whatever, we came home. I just told my parents, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go get Waffle House for a snack. But deep down, I was set. I had like letters to my family and stuff like that. And like, I had like a note with like password on my phone and just where stuff was, voice memos, like all this other stuff. And then my grandfather, he used to carry this knife called a hawk's bill knife. He had given one to me. My plan was just to take my life with that knife. And so I went to Waffle House to kind of get like my last meal and run away from my problems. I walk in, slam packed. And I knew that because I was there alone, I wouldn't get to sit at a booth or anything. And I grabbed this random guy and I'm like, hey, I'll pay for your meal if you sit with me. I'm just trying to eat right now. So we sit down pretty quick. And as soon as we sit down, he starts dumping his life problems on me. My wife's divorcing me. This is my last time with the kids. She's taking the kids from me, taking my money. I got nothing left. I'm losing it. And I'm like sitting there just thinking, you have no idea what I'm about to do, dude. And you're complaining to me about your family situation and this and that. And I'm thinking like, I'm about to go home and make a decision that I can't revoke. That's what's going through my brain. I'm like weighed down. My eyelids just sagging, not because I'm tired, because I'm just...
You think it's your last day?
Yeah, it's just like, oh, this is really it. He's just talking. I'm hearing some, not hearing everything, just kind of in my own lane. And then I just hear him say, I love my wife. She doesn't feel the same about me. There's no growth in a relationship if the love isn't mutual. And when he said that, it was just like an arrow struck my heart. All of that head knowledge I had about Jesus was just flashing in my brain. Scriptures I'd heard. When I was growing up in church, I would memorize the verse of the week so I could get a prize out of the treasure box. All these scriptures I'd memorized when I was a little kid, flashing through my brain. The gospel finally making sense to me. All these things, just supernatural understanding of like who God is, because he said there's no growth in a relationship if the love isn't mutual. And I went, man, I must have felt like God didn't love me because he was pursuing me and I wasn't even giving him a chance to love him back. And I never experienced any growth in that relationship because I just didn't have love for him. And so I couldn't experience his love because I just wasn't even giving my heart a chance to open up for it. It felt like the whole world stopped. I've never felt this before. I literally feel the feeling I felt right now when I was sitting there, like just so real. Like I just like feel so bad. Like when people message me or like when people like talk to me in person, they say like, man, like I just want to like take my own life. Because sometimes when people say that and sometimes people don't understand, but like it's just real, so real feeling. After I have this moment, I kind of freak out because I've never felt anything like it. I've never experienced anything like it. So I just kind of like throw money on the counter like to pay for the meal. And I just like walk out and he's freaking out. People are freaking out because they're like, this kid, this random guy, like blow up, like something happened. And I like went in my car and I was just like, God, if you're real, take away my anxiety and depression. Because deep down, like I really don't want to do this right now. Like I don't. And I was just like, if you're real, take away my anxiety and depression. And like since that day, sitting here, no more anxiety or depression. And that was like my cracked door to just like get in the way of like, man, God, like you gotta be real. And so instead of taking my life, I gave my life to somebody who wanted it. And so that's why I want to tell people about Jesus, not because I'm not trying to like run up my cards of like, you gave your life to Jesus today, check the box, give it to me so I can run up my stats so I look good. Like I don't care about that. Like I got transformed from something that felt incurable. And because of that, like I want to share that opportunity with people.
That line you said was, I didn't want my life, so I gave it to someone that wanted it.
So what's love got to do with it? Everything. God loves you so much. He gave his son to die for you. And today, as we take communion, we're going to do it a little different. If you don't have communion cups or a wafer, please raise your hand. We've got people in the back who are going to bring it to you. We've got some people here. As this song is playing about God's love for you, I just want you to close your eyes and think about his love for you. And in your heart, open your heart to him. Ask him to come into your heart, to change you, to put his seeds of love in you so that you can experience what a real loving relationship is all about. And when you're ready to accept him, just open the communion cup. It symbolizes Jesus' blood for you. Drink that, and then think about the sacrifice he made on the cross for you with his body. The wafer represents that. Take that, and just close your eyes and communicate with him in prayer as they sing this song.